Welcome to our ASBN Student Town Hall meeting, focusing on from graduation to licensure, your next steps to becoming a nurse. We have worked diligently to provide important information in this session that we hope will assist you in avoiding mistakes, delays, and ultimately frustrations for you and for us. We aim to make this session informative and interactive, so if at any time you have a question, please feel free to type that question in the chat box and we'll do our best to answer it before the session ends. So let's get started. First off, I want to introduce you to the licensing staff that work tirelessly to answer your phone calls, respond to your messages, and ensures your applications are processed as quickly as possible. I'm Tammy Vaughn, Assistant Director of the Education and Licensure Department, and I oversee this department. Dr. Brandy Haley, she's the Program Coordinator for Education. She oversees the program approvals for all nursing programs in the state. And many of you have probably already had the opportunity to meet her when she's come to your schools for lectures or for site visits. Deasia, she's the licensing coordinator for criminal background checks. She enters all the results from your background checks in the licensure system. Lori, she's the licensing coordinator for investigations. If you have a criminal history or you have a positive background check, she's the one who will be messaging you regarding your case. She and I work close together to ensure that your investigations are completed and closed as quickly as possible. And then there's Whitney. She's the licensing coordinator for initial applications. She will be your primary contact for all things exams. She looks at every single application that comes through our office to ensure everything is correct before they are deemed eligible to take the NCLEX. Markeisha, she's the licensing coordinator for renewals and life events. You won't see her during the initial application process unless you need to change your name or address. But when it's time to renew your license, she'll be your contact. We have one other person in our department. Her name is Carla, and she deals with all the out-of-state endorsements of licenses to Arkansas. So you won't hear from her during this session. So you probably thought we had a much bigger staff. It always amazes me that this small staff processes several thousand applications a year, and they do it quicker than most other states do. As you can see, each of these staff members has one specific job when it comes to processing your application. And just so you know, the initial application process is a manual process. It's completely manual. There's no automation to it at all. So each of these individuals may look at every application that's submitted to the board. So let's get down to the important information about applying for licensure. First things first, when do you apply for licensure? The board recommends that an applicant without any criminal history or issues that might delay processing apply 30 days in advance. If you know that there's going to be a criminal history to report, or you're requesting a waiver or testing accommodations or anything extra, then we recommend you apply about 60 days in advance of graduation. This allows time for the application to be reviewed and any investigation open and closed, hopefully before you complete the program. The main document that all of you are going to need for your application is a signed CBC challenge and privacy notification. And this is what that document looks like. You can find this form on our website with the CBC information, but you can also sign this form within your application as you complete it. We always encourage applicants, just to be on the safe side, that you print this form, sign it, scan both pages to your computer as one PDF, not two separate pictures, and upload the one form when asked within the application. Again, make sure if you upload this document, it is one file, not two separate pages, and both pages must be uploaded. We'll talk more about each of these other required documents listed here as we move through this session. The one thing that's not listed here is if you're an LPN and applying for RN license and you got married or you moved and you have not updated your information with us, you're going to have to do that before you submit your application. You'll need a marriage license or a divorce decree signed by a judge. If you will also need your name changed in your Pearson to take the NCLEX, you'll need to send us a separate message through your message center to make that change as well, because it's not an automatic change. So where do you apply for licensure? You'll go to the website, and I'm going to try and pull it up for you to see. We did it. The first place you need to visit is the Arkansas Nurse Portal How-To. So you'll scroll down here until you get to this tile, and you'll click on this tile, and then you'll click on videos. Scroll down a little bit, and then you'll choose creation of an Arkansas Nurse Portal account and submission of an application. Be sure to watch this video very carefully because it gives you some key information that will prevent you from making some mistakes. As always, you'll need to read everything thoroughly before you submit your application. After you set up your portal account, you'll be able to apply for licensure on your account. Let me get back to the screen here. After setting up that portal account, you'll be able to apply for licensure on your account. When you're choosing an application, make sure you choose the correct application before you submit. If you submit the wrong application, the fees you pay are not refundable, and we cannot transfer those fees to another application that's correct. You'll also have the ability to request a temporary permit. So within your application, you can request the temporary permit. If you forget to request the temporary permit within your initial application, there is a separate application you can submit. Just know that there might be a little delay in issuing the temporary permit if it's a separate application. We hear from a lot of students after submitting their temporary permit request as to why haven't we received our temporary permit yet? Well, you have to complete your nursing program successfully, and we have to receive the AOG from your nursing program director before your temporary permit can be issued. We issue the temporary permit usually on the same day you receive your authorization to test from Pearson. As a reminder, the permit is only valid for 90 days after it is issued or until you take the NCLEX the first time. This does not mean go work for 90 days before you take the NCLEX. The longer you wait to take the NCLEX, the more knowledge that is being lost. Your passing percentages drop significantly every week after graduation, so take the exam as quickly as possible. If you are not successful on the NCLEX, your permit is voided that same day, and you can no longer work on the permit. You cannot reapply for a temporary permit after it's been issued once, and the permit cannot be extended for any reason. So if your 90-day ATT expires, we can't extend your temporary permit. You basically cannot work until you take and pass the NCLEX. After you've submitted your application for licensure and you've paid the licensure fee, you are not done. You must submit a criminal background check and have your fingerprint scanned at a live scan facility. This is a separate application and a separate fee. So how do you do this? You will go to the ASBN website and click on the blue tile criminal background check. I'll show you where that is. So you remember those blue tiles on the website. Here's your criminal background checks button that you're going to click on. Please read through this information very carefully. Just a reminder, the CBC cannot be requested if you have not submitted an initial application for licensure. If you submit the background check before you submit your initial application, we will request that you pay and complete a new background check. This isn't our rule, this is an FBI rule. And if we are audited and a CBC date is before the submission of an application, we can be fined and or even lose our ability to do criminal background checks. So complete the criminal background request and double check all your information before submitting it. Some common errors that applicants make include spelling your name wrong, entering a wrong birth date or social security number. If this happens, we're not able to receive your CBC results. Once we are made aware that we have not received your results, and that's usually you contacting us, you're going to be asked to request a new CBC pay and have your fingerprint scanned again. Many applicants get upset with us because they feel they submitted everything correct and changes were made by the board. This is not possible because we do not have authorization or the ability to make any changes to the information that you have submitted. If all your information was submitted correctly and we receive your state results, but not federal results, it's usually because the scanning facility that scans your fingerprints did not hit the transfer, the transmit button to send them to the state police. We encourage you to reach out to them to ensure the submission was complete. The last step of the CBC process after you've submitted your request, paid the fees, and printed your receipt is to schedule your fingerprints to be scanned. Some of your nursing programs may have someone come to the school and do the scanning there, but others may be required to schedule it on their own. You'll need to click on the approved live scan sites that are on that criminal background check instructions and schedule an appointment with one of the approved live scan facilities. Remember that scanning is a service, so when you schedule that service, you're probably going to have to pay a separate fee, and usually it's anywhere from $15 to $30. So be sure and take your payment receipt to the live scan office when you go to have your fingerprint scanned, because your BON number is on that receipt, and this number is required to link your results with the Board of Nursing, so we get those results. Once you've applied for licensure with the board and you've paid your $100 licensure fee, submitted your request for a CBC, and paid your $36-ish fee, your final step is to register with Pearson VUE to take, or it's Pearson now, sorry, to take the NCLEX and pay the $200 testing fee. It's very important. Your application with us is not considered complete, and it will not be processed until all three steps that we've talked about already are completed. Your licensure application submitted, your CBC submitted, and we get the results, and your Pearson registration, and you've registered with Pearson. You'll go to the NCLEX.com website, and this website provides all kinds of resources for you to use, from preparing for the test to what happens after the exam. This site provides the NCLEX test plans, and the test plans are everything that could potentially be on the exam. And I encourage students to print this test plan and use it as a study guide. As you're studying, you're going to check off all the content on that test plan that you're confident in. And then don't schedule your exam until all the test plan is checked. And if all the test plan is checked, schedule your exam. I can pretty much guarantee you'll pass that exam on the first try. Some other important information when registering with Pearson, if you are applying for Arkansas licensure, make sure you select that Arkansas receives your results. Many students make the mistake of really quickly clicking through and they end up choosing Alaska, Arizona, Alabama, and then they wonder why they haven't been deemed eligible to take the exam. We can't change your state choice once you've made it. This is much like the CBC information. We're not authorized or have the ability to make many changes at all in your Pearson account after you've submitted it. So if there is a change that has to be made, you'll have to contact Pearson and pay a change fee to move it to Arkansas. And I think the change fee is somewhere around $50. Make sure your first name and your last name in Pearson match with the ID you're using to enter the testing center. If that first and last name does not match, you will be sent away from the testing center and have to reapply and pay all your fees again. Also, make sure your birth date is entered correct. If it is not correct, Pearson will place your result on hold until they verify with us your correct birth date, and this can take a few days. When you are completing the registration with Pearson, the Social Security number is considered an optional field to enter. However, it is not optional for Arkansas. You must enter your Social Security number if you want your results to be linked to your licensure application here in Arkansas. So make sure you enter the Social Security number correct, or your license will be delayed. The last requirements before you can be deemed eligible to take the NCLEX or be issued a licensure after you pass the NCLEX include the following. The affidavit of graduation, more commonly known as the AOG. That's submitted electronically by your program director after you complete your program successfully. To ensure your director receives your information when you complete your application, make sure that you enter the nursing education and the basis for licensure correctly. We have students reach out to us often stating, my director says she can't see me in her AOG system. Most of the time, it's because the applicant did not enter the nursing education correct, or they didn't change their basis for education to the license they are applying for. If you are graduating from a PN program, be sure you have your PN education information and then make sure your basis for licensure is your PN program. If you are already a PN and you're graduating from the same program with your RN, you will need to add the same program again, but with the RN education as the basis for licensure. Once we receive all the requirements we have mentioned already, your application, CBC results, registration with Pearson, the final step is receiving the AOG. Once we receive the AOG, we can deem you eligible to take the NCLEX, and we can issue you for a permit if you've requested it. At that point, you'll receive your authorization to test, better known as your ATT, and be able to schedule your exam. You will want to make sure that you have requested an official transcript to be sent to the board as soon as after you complete the program as possible. As you can see here, the AOG is needed for us to deem you eligible to take the NCLEX, but the transcript is required for the board to issue a permanent license. We hear from students all the time after we send them a missing transcript message when they've passed their NCLEX that how was I able to take the NCLEX if the board didn't have my transcript already? So remember, if you want your license quickly after passing the NCLEX, make sure we have your transcript. Transcripts can be sent electronically by your registrar to our secure transcript portal, or if your college participates in Parchment or Clearinghouse, we accept those as well. So now let's talk about a few things that could slow the processing of your application down a little bit. So you open your message center and you receive a message that says, your application has been forwarded to an investigator due to one of the responses you made on your application eligibility questions or because of the results of your CBC. First of all, don't panic. But what do you need to do now? There are a few reasons why your application could be forwarded to an investigator. The first is you checked yes to having a criminal background history. When it comes to criminal history, this does not include traffic violations. We don't care about your speeding tickets or running a traffic light, but if you know you have a criminal history, then you will need to upload your certified court documents. These can be obtained from the county clerk's office in the county you were charged in. You can ask the clerk for the certified court disposition with any charges and or fees or stipulations. We cannot accept documents downloaded from Court Connect. These are not official documents signed by a judge. You'll also need to write a personal narrative or explanation of the incident and what occurred in your own words. If you have multiple charges, please do a timeline of the charges and a narrative for each incident. When you upload your court documents and narratives, put them in order and upload them as one document. We do not want 10 separate pictures, snapped files of your documents uploaded as 10 separate uploads. We need one document only. Just as an FYI, we get about 2,000 applications during the April through June graduation season. Probably one out of every 5-6 applicants have to be reviewed for some outside reason. So this is why it's important that you submit all required documents with your application or as soon as possible. The eligibility question in the application asks if you have ever been charged with a crime. This is a little bit confusing to some people. I would suggest if you have been to court for anything except traffic related charges, say yes and contact the clerk's office because more than likely it's going to show up on your background check. And if you say no, it's going to delay your application processing even more. The second reason your application might be forwarded to an investigator is your criminal background came back positive and you stated no on your application. There are charges that can pop up on your background that you might not be aware of. If you had a child and not in a car seat and were stopped, you could be charged with endangering the welfare of a minor. If you got a speeding ticket or a hot check and you didn't pay them, guess what? There's a warrant out for your arrest, and that's going to show up on your background check. Also, if you're an LPN in Arkansas or any other state and you've been disciplined by that state board of nursing in that state, the discipline is going to show up in our nurses system, which is a national nursing licensure database. And we're required to check nurses on all applicants before deeming them eligible to take the NCLEX. So if you have something on nurses, we will have to send you to an investigator as well. So this brings up another reminder. If you are currently an LPN and you were investigated with that initial licensure or during a renewal cycle, you must still check yes. However, we may still have your court records on file. You can upload a document stating that they have been submitted to the board already. Now, if it was before 2019, we may not have the documents any longer because we weren't electronic before that time. So I understand that I'm being investigated, but how long does an investigation usually take? This is a common question and it can vary based on the crime and when all your documents are submitted. As I stated previously, we have many applications that we receive or that we receive and require review during any graduation season. If all required documents and narratives are submitted with the application and the crimes are not a bar for licensure, you can expect to have your application processed within 6 to 8 weeks. Now, there are many variables that can throw this time off. So we ask that you have patience during the investigative process. Check your message center often and provide information as requested. And you're more than welcome to put a message in the message center just asking for a status update, and we can certainly check on it for you. You heard me mention there are crimes that are considered a bar for licensure. You should have received or been given a copy of the criminal background information when you entered your nursing program, along with a list of crimes that are considered bars. If you need to refer to that information, you can find that ACA 173102 list of bars on our website within the criminal background blue tile information. Some of the most common bars that we receive are theft of property, shoplifting, battery, controlled substance possession. These don't mean that you won't be able to get a license, but it might be delayed, or you might even have to get a waiver from the full board to take the NCLEX. I know many of you have questions related to the CBC and or their investigative process, so feel free to ask at the end of this session or in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer. So let's move on to some additional application information that some of you may need, starting with the workforce expansion waiver. One of the first questions asked in the application is if you plan to request the workforce waiver. This waiver was passed through the legislature in 2021 to help applicants who receive government assistance or were considered below the 200% federal poverty level pay for licensure applications. When you check yes to wanting the waiver, you're required to upload one of the mentioned documents. Very important. The applicant must be the receiver of the government assistance, not your child. Your name must be on the document. Do not upload a copy of your Medicaid card or your insurance card. This is not a primary verification of benefits. If you upload the wrong documents, we are required to void that application, and you will need to resubmit a new application with fees or upload the required documents. Having to redo your application is very frustrating, not just for y'all, but for us as well. We understand. So be sure to upload the correct documents. So let me show you the only two forms that are accepted in addition to your federal income tax. These are what the documents look like. Again, I've redacted a lot of information here so you can't see personal information. Again, the applicant must be the receiver of the benefits, and do not upload your insurance card or your Medicaid card. Those are not accepted. Notice of action letter and benefit verification worksheet, and all of these must be signed. So let's move on to another request an applicant might have with an application, and that's special accommodations. These are some common disabilities and accommodations that we grant. You see ADD, ADHD, dyslexia. If we receive the appropriate forms, we can grant accommodations for those disabilities. Extended time and separate room are two of the most common accommodations. So what is required in order to request these accommodations? With initial licensure, you must have received accommodations during your nursing program to be granted accommodations on your NCLEX. Anxiety alone is not considered a disability because we all have anxiety when taking a test. However, if you've been diagnosed by a behavioral specialist, psychiatrist, healthcare provider, etc., and have received accommodations during your nursing program, then we can grant those for the NCLEX. Within the application, you'll need to request testing accommodations and upload the required forms. And these are what the required forms look like. These forms can be found on our website under the ASBN Forms tab. All forms must be uploaded and reviewed before an applicant can be deemed eligible to take the NCLEX with accommodations. So be sure before you schedule your exam that your accommodations have been added. Once you schedule your exam date, the board cannot add accommodations. You will be required to cancel your exam for us to add your accommodations. And once you cancel that exam appointment, there's no guarantee you can get that same test time back again. It may be delayed. So let's move on to what happens after you're issued a license and some important things to remember. To renew your license on time and maintain an active status, you must renew your license within the 60-day period preceding your expiration date. Your license expiration date will always be the last day of your birth month. And if you were born in an even numbered year, your license will expire in every even numbered year. If you were born in an odd numbered year, your license will expire in every odd numbered year. So for example, if your birth date is July 15th, 2001, then your license will be due for renewal in July of every odd numbered year and must be renewed before it expires on, let's say, July 31st, 2027, July 31st, 2029, July 31st, 2031, and so on. The only exception to this rule is with the first license that you're issued. If you graduate and pass the NCLEX, let's say in May 2026, and your birth date is September the 10th of an even numbered year, 2002, then you'll be required to renew your license this year in 2026. That means your license will only be valid for 4 months, and then you'll be required to renew it. One benefit of having to renew within the first 2 years after completing your nursing education program is you're not required to submit continuing education because your nursing courses meet those requirements. So will I be notified when it's time for me to renew? Yes. You'll be notified by postcard 90 days prior to your renewal date. The postcard is mailed to the last known address that you have listed on your portal account. So make sure that you keep your address updated with the board at all times. You can also receive registration notifications with eNotify through nurses.com. And you'll need to, you can register with nurses, you can register with eNotify through nurses.com, and you'll receive frequent email reminders and license updates. We really encourage you to register with eNotify. This is a really important notification system. If you log into your portal account and you don't see the option to renew, don't panic. You'll need to wait until the first day of the month, 60 days before your expiration date, to be able to submit a renewal application. So what do you need to complete your or to renew your application? You'll need to complete your 15 hours of continuing education prior to submitting your renewal application. And again, that's prior to, not after. Continuing education cannot include hospital orientation, CPR, required employment education. It must be directly associated with your current practice setting and approved by one of the providers listed on our website. You'll check a box attesting to have completed those 15 hours of CE when you do your renewal. So don't upload those certificates unless someone from the board contacts you and requests them. Usually if you're being requested to upload your certificates, it's because you're being audited, and we do random audits every quarter. As a reminder, if you are 1 minute past expiration date, that's midnight 01, you'll be considered late, and you'll have to submit a late renewal application and a late fee. And that current late fee is $100. And you'll also be required to do an additional 5 continuing education hours, which now is 20 hours of continuing education to renew your license. And there's those, I apologize. So I know we covered a lot of information and it was covered very quick. All the staff are here online right now and available to answer any questions. Also, if you don't have questions, I want to give each of them an opportunity to provide or reinforce information that they feel is important. So let's get started.